Imagine being so powerful that your word is law. Literally. You could tax anyone, seize land on a whim, and throw people in jail just because you felt like it. That was King John of England in the early 1200s, a ruler so infamous for his greed, cruelty, and incompetence that even his own nobles were like, "We've had enough of this guy." And oh boy, they meant it. Fast forward to a field in Runnymede in 1215. Picture a fuming King John, a quill reluctantly gripped in his hand, surrounded by angry barons armed with swords and scrolls. They weren't here for tea and small talk. They were here to make history. That's how we got the Magna Carta, a groundbreaking document that flipped the script on medieval monarchy and planted the seed for modern democracy. But the Magna Carta wasn't just a piece of parchment. It was a political revolution disguised as a list of grievances. It reshaped power, justice, and liberty, not just for England, but for the world. How did an unpopular king tantrum become the cornerstone of right and freedom? Let's dive into this epic tale of rebellion, reform, and reluctant signatures. Get ready, it's about to get medieval. The tyrant and his troubles. To understand why the Magna Carta was such a big deal, let's meet the villain of our story, King John, reigning from 1199 to 1216. John had a knack for making enemies out of allies. He inherited a vast empire, England, part of modern-day France, and a smattering of territories. But through bad decision-making and frankly, being a jerk, he managed to lose most of it. John's reign was plagued by scandals and failures. He lost key lands in France, levied exorbitant taxes to fund disastrous wars, and clashed with his pope so badly that the entire kingdom was excommunicated. Imagine being the guy who gets a whole country banned from church. But the final straw, his abuse of power. John will imprison people without trials, seize lands from nobles, and demand money from barons at every turn. Even in a time when kings were expected to rule with an iron fist, John's behavior screams, "No rules applied to me." His baron, the feudal who propped up his monarchy, had other ideas. They were tired of being treated like John's personal piggy bank. By 1215, a tension reached a boiling point. The barons were ready to rebel unless John agreed to change his ways. Spoiler alert, John wasn't great at compromise. Runnymede, the birthplace of liberty, entered Runnymede. June 1215, a quiet meadow where history was about to be made. After months of baronial rebellion, King John had no choice but to negotiate. Surrounded by his furious nobles, he agreed to sign a document that would limit his power. The Magna Carta, Latin for Great Charter, was born. But don't let the fancy name fool you. This was basically the medieval equivalent of an angry Yelp review, listing everything the barons hated about John's rule. The Charter had 63 clauses, ranging from the mundane to the revolutionary. Some highlights: no taxation without representation. John couldn't just demand money without consulting his barons. Habeas corpus, no free man could be imprisoned without a fair trial. Church freedom. John couldn't interfere in church affairs. Sure, this idea seems obvious now, but in 1215, they were revolutionary. The Magna Carta was about democracy. It was about keeping a bad king in check. But it planted the first seed of accountability, showing that even monarchs couldn't act above the law. The immediate aftermath. Chaos? Of course. If you're picturing King John reading the Magna Carta and thinking, "Ah, yes, I see the errors of my way," again. John treated the Charter like a bad New Year's resolution. He ignored it almost immediately. Within weeks, he asked the Pope to annul the Magna Carta, claiming he's been forced into under duress. The Pope obliged, calling the document illegal, unjust, and shameful. This plunged England into civil war, known as the First Barons' War. Things didn't go great for John. He died in 1216, leaving the throne to his 9-year-old son, Henry III. With John gone, the Magna Carta found new life. The regent governing on young Henry's behalf reissued a revised version of the Charter, hoping to restore peace. Though the immediate impact was limited, the Magna Carta refused to die. Over the centuries, it was reissued, revised, and enshrined in English law. Its principle became a cornerstone for future generations, influencing everything from the English Bills of Rights to the US Constitution. Why the Magna Carta still matters. The Magna Carta wasn't perfect. It was written for a specific time and place, and addressing medieval grievances that might seem irrelevant today. For example, it granted fishing rights and outlined rules for inheriting debt. Groundbreaking stuff, right? But here's the twist. The Magna Carta legacy isn't about the specific clauses, it's about the big idea it represented, that no one, not even a king, is above the law. This principle echoes through history. In England, it sets the stage for constitutional monarchy. Across the Atlantic, American revolutionaries evoked the Magna Carta while fighting British tyranny. Its influence can be seen in modern concepts like due process, equal justice, and human rights. Today, only a handful of the Magna Carta's original clauses remain in English law, but its spirit endures. When we talk about liberty, accountability, or checks on power, we're speaking the language of Runnymede. The Magna Carta is a proof that even the most unlikely events can shape history. A medieval king forced to negotiate table by rebellious barons inadvertently created a symbol of liberty that transcends centuries. It wasn't flawless and it didn't instantly change the world, but its rippled effects are undeniable. Think about it. Without the Magna Carta, will the concept of no one is above the law have taken root? Will democracy as we know it exist? The barons who confronted King John when trying to start a global movement, they just wanted to rein in an overreaching monarch. Yet their defiance became a universal rallying cry for fairness and accountability. The Magna Carta reminds us that power unchecked is power abuse. It teaches us that even in the face of tyranny, it's possible to demand justice. And it's a reminder that change often starts not with grand vision, but small defiant acts. So, the next time you feel powerless, remember Runnymede. Remember a group of medieval barons who stood up to their king and changed history. The Magna Carta might be old, but its message is timeless. Liberty and justice are worth fighting for, even if it means dragging a king to a field and making him sign on the dotted line. So, here's a question for you. How do you think the principles of the Magna Carta could be applied to hold modern leaders accountable? If you could write a modern-day Great Charter, what issues would you address to ensure justice and equality? Let us know in the comments below. Ready for more royal intrigue and timeless tale? Check out the next video on screen to uncover another fascinating chapter in history. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay up to date with all things royal. See you in the next video.